I was wiping down the espresso machine when I heard the door. The sound cut through the silence like a blade, sharp, deliberate, wrong. We'd been closed for 20 minutes. The sign was flipped, the chairs stacked on tables like sleeping sentries, the city outside bleeding from dusk into something darker. I'd locked that door myself. I always did. 3 years of routine had taught me that locks mattered, that small rituals kept you safe, that being careful meant being invisible. But he walked in anyway. I didn't look up right away. My hands kept moving across the chrome surface of the machine, circular motions that had become muscle memory. I could hear his footsteps, slow, measured, the kind of walk that said he'd never hurried for anything in his life. Expensive shoes on old linoleum. The contrast made my chest tighten. When I finally turned, he was already seated at the corner table, the one I'd just cleaned. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than 3 months of my rent. Maybe 6. The fabric caught the dim overhead light in a way that made it look liquid, like smoke given shape. His hair was dark, pushed back from his face, and there was a scar along his jawline, thin, precise, the kind that came from something sharp held by someone who knew what they were doing. But it was his eyes that stopped me. Dark, unreadable, patient. You will feel so many emotions in this mysterious love story I'm about to tell. Please support us by clicking subscribe to the channel. He wasn't looking around the cafe, taking in the chipped paint, or the vintage espresso machine my aunt had loved, or the chalk menu board I rewrote every morning. He was looking at me, just me. Like I was the only thing in the room that mattered. I should have asked how he got in. I should have told him we were closed. I should have reached for my phone, my keys, the pepper spray I kept in my apron pocket. Instead, I heard myself say, "What can I get you?" My voice came out steadier than I felt. Small victories. His mouth curved. Not quite a smile, but close. Something knowing. Something that made heat crawl up the back of my neck. "One last coffee," he said. His voice was low, textured, the kind that made you lean in even when every instinct said to step back. There was an accent underneath. Something European, maybe, worn smooth by years in America but still there if you listened. I should have said no. Should have pointed at the sign, at the clock, at the chairs stacked on tables. Should have done any of the things a smart woman does when a strange man appears after hours in a neighborhood where smart women don't walk alone after dark. But I didn't. I turned back to the espresso machine and started to work. My hands shook, just slightly, just enough that I had to concentrate on each movement. Grind the beans, tamp the grounds, lock the portafilter. The familiar rhythm steadied me, gave me something to focus on besides the weight of his attention on my back. The machine hissed and gurgled. Steam rose. The smell of coffee filled the space between us, rich, bitter, grounding. "You work late," he said behind me. Not a question. "Someone has to..." "Alone." I didn't answer that. Didn't need to. He could see what he could see. I finished the coffee, pulled it just right, the crema golden and perfect, and carried it to his table. My aunt used to say you could tell everything about a person by how they drank their coffee. I wondered what mine said about me. Probably that I was too tired to taste it anymore. I set the cup down, careful not to let our fingers touch. He didn't drink right away, just wrapped his hands around the porcelain like he was warming them, even though it was June and the cafe was stuffy with trapped heat. "Thank you," he said, looking up at me. I nodded. Started to turn away. "Emma." My name in his mouth stopped me cold. I turned back slowly, my heart suddenly loud in my ears. "I didn't tell you my name." "No," he agreed. "You didn't." The silence stretched between us like a wire pulled taut. He took a sip of the coffee, his eyes never leaving mine over the rim of the cup. When he set it down, that almost smile was back. "You make good coffee, Emma. Your aunt taught you well." My blood went cold, then hot, then cold again. "How do you..." "The scar on your wrist," he said, gesturing with one elegant hand. "How did you get it?" I looked down automatically. The burn scar, small and silvery, just visible below the edge of my sleeve. I tugged the fabric down to cover it. "Accident?" I said. "Steam wand." "Liar." The word was soft, almost gentle. Somehow that made it worse. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold despite the heat. "I think you should leave." "I think you should lock the door earlier," he said, standing. He moved like water, like violence wrapped in expensive fabric, and suddenly the cafe felt very small. 6 blocks is a long walk in the dark. He knew where I lived. He knew my name. He knew about my aunt. He knew about the scar I'd told everyone, even myself, was from the steam wand, even though we both knew it was from a cigarette held against my skin until I stopped screaming. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move, could only stand there while he pulled a business card from his inner pocket and placed it on the table next to his empty cup. "Dominic Corelli," he said. "When you need me, and you will, call that number. I won't need you." "Yes," he said. And now he was close enough that I could smell his cologne, something dark and woody that probably had a name I couldn't pronounce. "You will." He walked past me toward the door. I heard it open, heard the city sounds rush in, traffic and voices and someone's radio playing too loud, heard it close again, heard the lock click. I stood there for a long time, staring at the business card. Matte black, raised lettering. No company name, no title, just a name and a number. My hands were shaking when I finally picked it up. I should have thrown it away, should have burned it in the alley dumpster and scrubbed his coffee cup until my fingers bled and pretended none of this had happened. I put it in my pocket instead. That night, I walked home like I always did. 6 blocks through streets that got darker with each turn. I kept my keys between my fingers, kept my head down, kept moving. The same route I'd walked every night for 3 years. The route that had kept me safe because I was careful, because I was invisible, because men like him didn't notice women like me. Except he had. I unlocked my apartment door, 3 locks, always 3, and stepped inside. Checked every room, every closet, behind the shower curtain, under the bed. The same ritual I'd performed every night since I'd stopped waking up in hospitals. Everything was fine. Everything was safe. I poured myself water, I didn't drink, and sat at my kitchen table with the lights off, looking out at the street below, watching shadows move between streetlights, wondering which one was him. I fell asleep there, my head on my arms, still wearing my work clothes. When I woke to my phone alarm at 5 a.m., my neck ached and my mouth tasted like stale coffee. I stood, stretched, started to make my morning tea. That's when I saw it, an envelope, white, crisp, taped to the outside of my apartment door. I stared at it for a full minute before I opened the locks. 3 of them, always 3, and pulled it free. My name was written on the front in clean, precise handwriting. No address, just Emma. My fingers felt numb as I tore it open. Inside, cash. More than I made in a month at the cafe. More than enough to cover my rent, my utilities, my student loans, my aunt's remaining medical bills. More than enough to change everything. And underneath, a note on heavy cardstock. The same handwriting, the same careful precision. Lock the door earlier. Someone's watching. I read it 3 times, 4, 5. Then I looked up at the hallway, at the other apartment doors, at the stairs leading down to the street, at all the places someone could stand and wait and watch. I went back inside, locked all 3 locks, put the envelope on my kitchen counter and stood there staring at it until the sun came up and I had to leave for the cafe. I didn't call the number, didn't spend the money, didn't tell anyone what had happened, but I kept the note. And that night, when I locked the cafe door, I looked both ways down the empty street. A black car was idling under the broken streetlight at the corner. Too expensive for this neighborhood, too clean. I couldn't see through the tinted windows, but I knew, the way you know things in your bones, in your blood, that he could see me just fine. The envelope sat on my kitchen counter for 3 days like a live grenade. I didn't touch it, didn't count the money again, didn't throw it away. Just let it exist there in my peripheral vision, a constant reminder that my carefully constructed invisibility had failed, that someone had seen me, that someone was still watching. On the 4th day, my landlord knocked on my door. Mr. Hendricks was 67, smelled like cigars and Old Spice, and had spent the last 8 months reminding me, with increasing hostility, that my rent was overdue. 2 months behind, going on 3. He'd threatened eviction twice, changed the threat to, "we can work something out," once when he'd had too much whiskey, and I'd learned to avoid him entirely by timing my comings and goings around his schedule. But there he was, at 7 in the morning, knocking like he had good news. I opened the door with all 3 chains still attached. Mr. Hendricks. Emma. He was smiling. I'd never seen him smile. I just wanted to let you know, we're all squared up on the rent situation. My stomach dropped. What? Somebody paid your balance. 2 months back rent, plus this month. Even threw in next month as a courtesy. He scratched his jaw, looking almost sheepish. Gotta say, didn't know you had that kind of money saved up. Good for you, kid. I didn't. I stopped. Started again. Who paid it? Payment came through my management company. Anonymous wire transfer. Above board, all legal. He shrugged. Hell, I don't care if it came from the Pope. Money spends the same. Just wanted you to know you're good for a while. No more late notices. He left whistling. I closed the door, locked all 3 locks. Stood there with my back against the wood, trying to breathe through the rage building in my chest. The envelope, the money I hadn't touched, hadn't wanted, hadn't asked for. He'd used it anyway. I grabbed my phone, pulled out the black business card I'd hidden in my junk drawer under dead batteries and expired coupons, stared at the number. My thumb hovered over the keypad. 3 years. 3 years I'd built this life. Small, careful, mine. 3 years of making my own choices, paying my own bills, even when it meant eating ramen for dinner and walking instead of taking the bus. 3 years of proving to myself that I could survive without anyone's help, anyone's money, anyone's control, and he'd dismantled it in 4 days. I dialed before I could stop myself. He answered on the first ring. No greeting, just, Emma, take it back. My voice shook with fury. Whatever you paid, whoever you paid it to, take it back. I don't want your money. Good morning to you too. His voice was warm, amused, like this was a game, like I was entertaining. I'm serious. I didn't ask for your help. I don't need your charity or whatever this is. It's not charity. Then what is it? A pause. I could hear city sounds in the background, traffic, voices, the distinctive sound of construction. He was outside somewhere, moving. It's a retainer, he said finally. A retainer. I laughed, bitter. For what? I don't work for you. Not yet. Not ever. Emma, my name again, soft and sure. The rent was just the beginning. There's also the matter of your student loans. How do you... And your aunt's medical bills. The collection agency has been calling you 3 times a week. You don't answer. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. The room tilted. You had no right. I had every right. Someone needed to look out for you. You clearly weren't going to do it yourself. That's not... You can't just... I was stuttering, furious, terrified. You're a stranger. You don't know anything about me. I know you work 70 hours a week at a cafe that barely breaks even. I know you haven't bought yourself new clothes in 18 months. I know you walk home alone every night through a neighborhood where 3 women have been assaulted in the last year. His voice changed, went harder. I know Marcus Tate put you in the hospital 2 years ago. And I know the restraining order you filed did absolutely nothing to keep him away. The name hit me like a fist. Marcus. I hadn't heard anyone say it out loud in months. I'd trained myself not to think it, not to let it take up space in my head. But there it was, in this stranger's mouth. Proof that my past wasn't past at all. How do you know that name? It came out flat. Dead. I know a lot of things, Emma. It's my job to know. What job? Who are you? I told you. Dominic Corelli. A pause. And I think you should come see me. We need to talk. No. It's not a request. Then it's a prison. It's protection. The word hung between us. Protection. The same word Marcus had used. The same promise that had rotted into possession, into violence, into 3 broken ribs and a night I couldn't forget no matter how hard I tried. I've heard that before, I said quietly. It didn't end well. His silence was different this time. Heavier. When he spoke again, his voice had lost its amusement. I'm not him. You all say that. Emma, don't. I closed my eyes. Don't say my name like you know me. You don't. This, whatever this is, stops now. Keep your money. Keep your protection. Leave me alone." I hung up. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped the phone. It clattered against the linoleum, and I left it there, sliding down to sit on my kitchen floor with my knees pulled to my chest. 3 years. 3 years of being careful. 3 years of staying small and quiet and safe. And in 4 days, Dominic Corelli had found every crack in my armor. I went to work. What else was I going to do? The cafe opened at 6. I unlocked the doors, turned on the lights, started the espresso machine. The morning rush was predictable. Construction workers wanting black coffee and something portable. Office workers wanting lattes with extra foam. The occasional student who'd studied all night and needed an IV drip of caffeine. I moved through it on autopilot. Smile, take order, make drink, repeat. At 8:30, a man walked in. Not Dominic, someone else. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a leather jacket that had seen better decades. He had the kind of face that had been handsome once, before whatever happened to it happened. Broken nose, scar through his eyebrow, eyes that cataloged everything in the room before settling on me. "Coffee," he said. "Black." I made it. He didn't drink it. "You, Emma?" Every instinct I'd developed over 3 years screamed at once. "Depends who's asking." "Someone who wants to make sure you're safe." He pulled out a card, different from Dominic's, cheaper paper, and slid it across the counter. "I'm Jimmy. I'll be around. You need anything, you call that number." I didn't ask for a bodyguard. Didn't ask for a lot of things, I'm guessing. He said it kindly, which somehow made it worse. "But you got one anyway. Mr. Corelli's orders. Mr. Corelli can and he will." Jimmy picked up his untouched coffee. "I'll be outside, black sedan across the street. You don't have to like it. You just have to get used to it." He left. I stood there staring at the space he'd occupied, rage and helplessness warring in my chest. Through the window, I could see the sedan, black, clean, expensive. Jimmy leaned against it, lit a cigarette, settled in like he had all day, like he had all week, like he had forever. The morning blurred. I made drinks, smiled at customers, pretended everything was normal. At noon, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Then I thought about Marcus, about how he'd found me last time, about the restraining order that had been nothing more than paper. "Hello?" Heavy breathing. Then, "Emma," Marcus's voice. After 2 years of silence, after restraining orders and blocked numbers and changing my address, there it was. Slurred, angry, familiar in the worst way. "I found you, baby." The phone went dead. I dropped it like it was burning, stood frozen behind the counter, my vision tunneling, my breath coming in short gasps that wouldn't fill my lungs. He found me. He found me. He found me. A customer asked if I was okay. I nodded automatically, but I wasn't okay, wasn't safe, wasn't anything except terrified. I looked out the window. Jimmy was still there, still waiting. And I finally understood. Dominic Corelli hadn't invaded my life because he wanted to control me. He'd invaded my life because someone else already had, and I'd been too proud or too scared to see it. Marcus had never stopped watching, never stopped planning, and now he'd made his move. My phone buzzed again. Different number. I recognized it this time. I answered, "Emma." Dominic's voice was calm, steady. "Are you alone?" "No. There are customers, and your man, Jimmy." "Good. Listen carefully. Lock the front door. Put up the closed sign. Jimmy will come inside. You're going to leave with him. I can't just close the cafe in the middle of..." "You can, and you will. Not harsh, not cruel, just absolute. Marcus called you 3 minutes ago. I know. We've been monitoring his phone since he violated his restraining order last week." "He violated when? How?" "He came to Chicago. Rented an apartment 4 blocks from your cafe. He's been watching you, Emma, waiting for his moment." The room spun. I gripped the counter to stay upright. Why didn't anyone tell me? Because I was handling it, quietly. But he's escalating, and I need you somewhere safe until this is resolved. A pause. "Please, trust me." Trust? Such a small word. Such an impossible ask. "If I do this," I said slowly, "if I go with Jimmy, if I let you, if I accept your help, What do you want in return? I want you alive. That's not an answer. Yes, Dominic said softly. It is. I looked around the cafe, my aunt's cafe, my sanctuary, my proof that I could survive. Looked at Jimmy through the window, patient and solid. Looked at my phone, at Marcus's number still glowing on the screen. I thought about 3 years of being invisible, about how much it had cost me, about how little it had protected me in the end. Okay, I whispered. Okay. I hung up, locked the door, flipped the sign. Jimmy walked in like he'd been expecting it. Ready? I wasn't. Would never be. But I nodded anyway. We walked to the sedan together. He opened the back door. I slid inside. And that's when I saw it, taped to the cafe's front window, visible now that I was outside. A photograph of me, sleeping in my apartment, in my bed, last night. Below it, 3 words in red marker, "You were chosen." The photograph burned in my mind even after Jimmy pulled away from the curb. Me, in my bed, through my window. Close enough that whoever took it could see the pattern on my pillowcase, the way my hair fell across my face, the worn copy of poetry I kept on my nightstand, the one my aunt had given me before she died. Someone had stood outside my apartment window, had watched me sleep, had been close enough to touch the glass. And I hadn't known. 3 locks. 3 years of rituals. All of it useless. You okay back there? Jimmy's eyes found mine in the rearview mirror. I wasn't anywhere close to okay. But I nodded anyway, because what else do you do when your entire sense of safety reveals itself as fiction? We drove through Chicago in silence. I watched the city slide past, familiar streets becoming unfamiliar as we moved north, away from my neighborhood with its dive bars and check-cashing places and corner stores with barred windows. The buildings got taller, cleaner, the kind of clean that comes from money, from power, from the ability to keep the ugliness at bay. Jimmy pulled up to a high-rise made entirely of glass and steel. It looked like it belonged in a different city, a different world. A doorman appeared immediately, opening my door before I could reach for the handle. "Ms. Hayes," he said, like he'd been expecting me, like I belonged here. I didn't correct him, just followed Jimmy through a lobby that was all marble and modern art, into an elevator that required a key card to operate. He pressed the button for the 40th floor. There was no button above it. The penthouse. Of course it was the penthouse. The elevator rose so smoothly I barely felt it move. Just the numbers climbing, counting off the distance between the ground and wherever Dominic Corelli lived. 30 floors, 35, 40. The doors opened directly into his apartment. Not a hallway, not a foyer, just into his space, like the entire floor belonged to him. Which, I realized as I stepped out, it did. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped around 3 sides, giving a view of Chicago that made my breath catch despite everything. Lake Michigan stretched blue and infinite to the east. The skyline glittered to the south. To the west, the city sprawled towards suburbs I'd never seen, places where people had lawns and driveways and lives that didn't include photographs taped to windows. "Mr. Corelli will be with you shortly," Jimmy said. "Make yourself comfortable." Then he was gone, back into the elevator, leaving me alone in a space that felt more like an art installation than a home. Everything was angles and clean lines, white leather furniture that looked untouched, abstract paintings that probably cost more than I'd make in a lifetime, a kitchen with appliances I couldn't name, books on shelves that actually looked red, their spines creased and worn. That surprised me. The books. They made him human. I walked to the windows, pressed my palm against the glass. From up here, the city looked manageable, comprehensible, like something you could control. Beautiful, isn't it? I spun around. Dominic stood in a doorway I hadn't noticed, wearing dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. No jacket, no tie. Somehow that made him more dangerous, not less, like seeing the machinery under the polished exterior. "You're angry," he said. Not a question. Someone took a picture of me sleeping. My voice came out steady. "Good. They were at my window. They were in my apartment building. And you knew. You knew Marcus was here, you knew he was watching me, and you didn't tell me. If I'd told you, what would you have done?" I would have... I stopped. Started again. I don't know. Something. Anything. I would have had a choice. You would have run. He moved further into the room, each step deliberate. You would have disappeared, and he would have followed, and I wouldn't have been there to stop what happened next. You don't know that. Yes, he said quietly. I do. He crossed to a bar cart, poured 2 glasses of something amber, offered me one. I didn't take it. I've been watching Marcus for 6 days, Dominic continued, setting the glass on the coffee table between us. Monitoring his calls, following his movements, waiting for him to make a mistake big enough that I could act without... He paused, choosing his words. Without complicating things. Complicating things, I repeated. Is that what you call it when you invade someone's privacy? When you make decisions about their life without asking? I call it keeping you alive. I didn't ask you to. No. He picked up his own glass, studied the liquid inside. You asked me to leave you alone, and if I'd done that, you'd be dead by morning. The certainty in his voice stopped me. Not arrogance, not bravado, just cold, absolute knowledge. How do you know? Because Marcus didn't come to Chicago for closure, Emma. He came to finish what he started. Dominic pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, turned it toward me. We intercepted this 3 hours ago. A text message from Marcus to a number I didn't recognize. Tonight, the cafe, bring the gasoline. The room tilted. I sat down hard on the white leather couch, my legs suddenly unable to hold me. He was going to burn it down. I whispered, with me inside. Yes, but why? It's been 2 years. Why now? Dominic sat across from me, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. When he spoke, his voice was gentler than I'd heard it. Because you survived him. Because you testified. Because you built a life that proved you didn't need him, and men like Marcus can't tolerate that. He paused. Because you made him feel small, and small men do terrible things to feel big again. I thought about Marcus in the courtroom, his face when the judge read the restraining order. The way he'd smiled at me, not angry, just patient, like he had all the time in the world. I guess he did. What happens now? I asked. Now you stay here, where I can protect you. For how long? Until it's safe. And when will that be? He didn't answer, just looked at me with those dark, unreadable eyes, and I understood. Not until Marcus was gone. One way or another. I can't stay here. I stood, needing to move, needing space. I have a life, a job. I can't just disappear. The cafe is closed. I've arranged for someone to manage it temporarily. You've arranged? I laughed, brittle. Of course you have. You've arranged everything. My rent, my safety, my entire existence. All without asking. Would you have said yes if I'd asked? No. Then I made the right choice. I wanted to scream, wanted to throw something at his calm, certain face, wanted to run back to my apartment and pack a bag and get on a bus to somewhere he'd never find me. But the photograph was still there, burned into my mind. Marcus's text message, the gasoline. I was so tired of running. I need air, I said. The balcony. No. I looked at him. Real air. A walk, something. I'm not a prisoner here, am I? He studied me for a long moment, then stood, pulled out his phone, sent a quick text. Jimmy will go with you. Of course he will. Emma, don't. I held up a hand. Just don't. Not right now. I walked to the elevator. Jimmy was already there, somehow, like he'd been summoned by telepathy. Maybe he had been. Maybe that's how this world worked. Invisible signals, unspoken commands, men appearing and disappearing according to rules I didn't understand. We rode down in silence. Outside, the afternoon sun was too bright, too cheerful. People walked past in business clothes, carrying takeout and talking on phones and living normal lives. I wanted to grab them, shake them, ask them how they did it, how they existed in the world without looking over their shoulders, without checking locks 3 times, without wondering who was watching. Where to? Jimmy asked. I don't care. Anywhere. Just walk. We walked. Jimmy stayed 3 steps behind, close enough to intercede, far enough to give the illusion of privacy. I didn't know where we were going, just followed the sidewalk. Turned when I felt like turning. Let the city absorb me. After 20 minutes, I found myself in front of a small church. Old stone, carved angels, wooden doors propped open despite the heat. The kind of place my aunt used to drag me to when I was young, before she got sick, before everything fell apart. I went inside. The cool darkness was immediate, absolute. It smelled like incense and old wood and something else. Peace, maybe. The kind that comes from centuries of people bringing their burdens here, leaving them in the pews, walking back out lighter. I sat in the back row. Jimmy stayed near the door, giving me space. I didn't pray, didn't know how anymore. Just sat there in the quiet, letting my mind empty. That's when I noticed the photograph on the small table near the entrance. A memorial, maybe, or a community board. But one face caught my attention. A young woman, dark-haired, smiling, alive in a way that suggested the photo was taken before whatever happened to her happened. I stood, moved closer. The caption beneath read, Isabella Corelli, 1992-2018. Gone, but never forgotten. Corelli, the woman in the photograph on Dominic's nightstand, the one he'd said he couldn't protect. I pulled out my phone, took a picture of the memorial, then walked back outside. Jimmy was already texting, probably alerting Dominic to my location, my movements, my every breath. I didn't care anymore. Didn't have the energy to care. I want to go back, I said. He nodded. We drove in silence. The elevator ride felt shorter this time. When the doors opened, Dominic was waiting. He looked different, less polished. His shirt was untucked, his hair disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. He looked worried. Actually worried. You were gone for 43 minutes, he said. I needed to think. You could have... I held up my phone, showed him the photograph of Isabella's memorial. His face went completely still. Who was she? I asked quietly. For a long moment, he didn't answer. Just stared at the image like it could reach through the screen and hurt him. My sister, he said finally. She was my sister. What happened? She fell in love with the wrong man. I told her to stay away from him. She didn't listen. His voice was flat, empty. He killed her, made it look like an accident. By the time I proved otherwise, he'd disappeared. Did you find him? Dominic looked at me then, and something in his eyes made my blood run cold. Yes. One word, volumes of meaning underneath. I'm sorry, I said, and meant it. So am I. He moved to the windows, stared out at the city. I swore I'd never let it happen again. That I'd never stand by while He stopped himself. While someone under my protection got hurt. Is that what I am? Under your protection? Yes. What if I don't want to be? He turned to face me. Then you're a fool. But you already knew that. I should have been angry, should have thrown his words back at him. Instead, I found myself asking, do you do this for everyone? Invade their lives, rearrange everything, force them into safety. No? Then why me? Because he stopped. Started again. Because when I walked into that cafe, I saw someone trying so hard to be invisible that she was disappearing. And I know what that looks like. I know what comes after. You don't know me. I know enough. We stared at each other across the expensive furniture, the abstract art, the 40 floors of distance between us and the real world. Your aunt's cafe, Dominic said suddenly. Why do you still run it? You could sell it, pay off your debts, start over somewhere else. The question caught me off guard. Because it's all I have left of her. Because she loved that place. Because... I stopped. Surprised by the tears suddenly burning behind my eyes. Because she saw me, really saw me, and I can't let that go. Something shifted in Dominic's expression, softened. My sister used to say the same thing about our family estate in Sicily, that it held her, kept her real. He smiled. But it was sad. I sold it after she died. Couldn't stand to look at it without her. Do you regret it? Every day. The honesty surprised me. Made him real. Made him human instead of just the dangerous man in the expensive suit who'd upended my life. I walked to the windows, stood beside him. From here, I could see my neighborhood, just a smudge on the horizon, too far away to be real. I'm tired, I said. Not just today, not just this week. All of it, all 3 years. The guest room is through there. He gestured to a hallway I hadn't explored. Everything you need is there. Clothes, toiletries. If something's missing, just tell Jimmy. You planned this. Even before today. Yes. Why? He looked at me then, really looked at me. And I saw it. The thing under the polish, under the control. Fear. Not for himself. For me. Because the first time I saw you, you were cleaning that espresso machine like it was the only thing keeping you tethered to the world, and I recognized that look. His voice dropped. I've worn it myself. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his entire demeanor changed. Went cold. Hard. What? I asked. Marcus? He was already moving, already texting. He's at the cafe? Now? But it's closed. There's no one there. Exactly. He pulled up a security feed on his phone, camera footage from somewhere across the street. I watched Marcus approach the cafe door, try the handle, then reach into his jacket. He pulled out a bottle. Even through the grainy footage, I could see the liquid inside catch the streetlights. Gasoline. No, I whispered. No, no, no. Dominic was already on the phone, already giving orders in a language I didn't understand. Italian, maybe, or something older, but it was too late. On the screen, Marcus pulled out a lighter. The cafe, my aunt's cafe, my sanctuary, my proof that I could survive, went up in flames. I watched it burn. Watched 3 years of careful rebuilding turn to ash in seconds. Watched the only place I'd ever felt safe disappear. And I realized, standing there in Dominic Corelli's penthouse 40 floors above the city, that I wasn't invisible anymore. I was visible, vulnerable, target, and there was no going back. The cafe burned for 47 minutes. I know because I stood at Dominic's window counting every one of them, watching the orange glow pulse against the night sky like a dying heartbeat. Fire trucks arrived, police cars, crowds gathered on the sidewalk to watch someone's life turn to smoke. My life. Dominic stood behind me, silent. He'd made his calls, dispatched his people, set things in motion with the kind of efficiency that suggested this wasn't his first fire. But he didn't try to comfort me. Didn't offer platitudes about insurance or rebuilding or things being replaceable. He just stood there, present, solid, like he understood that some losses don't have words. When the flames finally died, I turned away from the window. I need answers, I said. Ask. Who's Victor? Dominic's jaw tightened. How do you know that name? Because I'm not stupid. I pulled out my phone, showed him a screenshot I'd taken earlier. The security footage he'd pulled up, paused on a frame where Marcus was talking to someone just out of view. There. That shadow. Marcus looked at someone before he lit the match. Someone gave him permission. Dominic studied the image. Something like approval flickering across his face. Victor Rinaldi. He paused, choosing his words carefully. He's someone who profits from other people's suffering. That's not an answer. It's the only one you need right now. No. I stepped closer, close enough to see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. You don't get to decide what I need anymore. You want me here? You want me to stay in this golden cage 40 floors above my life? Then you tell me the truth. All of it. The silence stretched between us. I could see him calculating, weighing what I could handle against what he wanted to protect me from. Victor deals in people, he said finally. Women, mostly, girls, sometimes. He moves them through the city like cargo, sells them to the highest bidder, throws them away when they're used up. The words landed like blows. And you, what? You're trying to stop him. I'm trying to bury him. Why? What does any of this have to do with me? Dominic moved to the bar cart, poured himself 2 fingers of something dark, drank half of it before answering. Your cafe sits on Halstead Street, 3 blocks from the port, 5 from the industrial district. It's neutral territory, or it was before I started using it. Using it for what? Watching, listening. Your morning customers include 3 of Victor's drivers, 2 dirty cops on his payroll, and a city councilman who takes his bribes in cash. He finished his drink. They talk when they think no one important is listening. And you were perfect. Invisible, forgettable. The woman behind the counter who never looked up from the espresso machine. The truth settled over me like ice water. You've been using me this whole time. Every customer, every conversation. Yes. Did you? I could barely form the words. Did you bring Marcus here? Did you tell him where to find me? No. The word was sharp, immediate. Marcus found you on his own. But Victor noticed my interest in the cafe, started asking questions. And when he asks questions, people die. So you what? Decided to collect me? Keep me safe so your surveillance operation wouldn't be compromised. I decided to keep you safe because... He stopped himself, turned away. Because what? Because I've seen what Victor does to women he considers leverage. And I won't. I can't. His hand clenched around the empty glass. I couldn't let it happen again. Isabella. He was talking about Isabella. I thought about the memorial photograph, the smile that suggested she'd never seen the darkness coming. Did Victor kill your sister? No. Dominic set down the glass with careful precision. The man she loved killed her. But Victor owned him, gave the orders, made it happen. He finally looked at me. I spent 2 years finding proof, another year finding him. And when you found him, I kept my promise to Isabella. The words were simple. The meaning underneath was not. I should have been horrified. Should have run for the elevator, called the police, done something to distance myself from whatever Dominic Corelli was capable of. Instead, I asked, what promise? That anyone who hurt her would die knowing exactly why. He said it without emotion, without regret. Just fact. That I would be the last face they saw. We stood there in his expensive apartment with its abstract art and Lake Michigan views. And I realized something. I wasn't scared of him. Should have been. Wasn't. Maybe that made me broken. Maybe 3 years of Marcus had rewired something essential. Or maybe I was just tired of being the one who got hurt while everyone else made the rules. I want to know how this ends, I said quietly. What do you mean? Victor? Marcus? This. Whatever this is between us. I want to know the plan. No more secrets. No more decisions made for my own good. I moved closer. You want me to trust you? Then trust me back. Dominic studied me for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone, pulled up a photograph. A warehouse, industrial and anonymous. Victor operates out of here. We've been watching it for 6 months, building a case that'll hold up in court. You're going to turn him in. Eventually. When I have enough evidence to ensure he never sees daylight again. And Marcus? Marcus violated his restraining order, committed arson, made terroristic threats. Dominic's voice was clinical, detached. He'll go back to prison, this time for longer. He'll get out eventually. Not if I have any say in it. The promise in those words should have frightened me. Instead, it felt like the first solid ground I'd stood on in days. I have conditions, I said. Of course you do. 3 rules. If you want me to stay here, if you want me to be part of whatever this is, then you follow them. Something shifted in Dominic's expression. Not quite a smile, but close. I'm listening. 1. You don't lie to me. Not about Victor, not about Marcus, not about what you're doing or why. I'd rather have ugly truth than pretty lies. Agreed. 2. You don't make decisions about my life without telling me first. My cafe, my finances, my safety, we discuss it. Like adults. Reasonable. 3. I took a breath. You tell me about Isabella, not the sanitized version, the real story. Because if I'm going to understand you, I need to understand what made you... I gestured at the expensive space. At him. This? The silence was different this time. Heavier. Dominic walked back to the windows, stared out at the city. She was younger than you, he said finally. 23 when she met him. Antonio. He was charming, educated, came from an old family. Everything our father wanted for her. But you didn't trust him. I knew what he was, who he worked for. The kind of man who'd sell his own family if the price was right. His reflection in the glass looked haunted. I told her, showed her evidence. She thought I was being overprotective, that I couldn't accept her being happy. What happened? She married him anyway. 6 months later, she was dead. Car accident, the police said. Brake failure. Tragic but not suspicious. He pressed his palm against the window. I had the car examined by my own people. The brake line was cut, professionally. And Antonio, Antonio collected a $2 million life insurance policy and disappeared. I'm sorry, I whispered. I found him in Prague. Took me 18 months. He was living well. New name, new face, Victor's money keeping him comfortable. Dominic turned to face me. I made sure his last moments were very uncomfortable. Do you regret it? No. No hesitation, no doubt. I regret not acting sooner, not trusting my instincts, not taking Isabella somewhere safe where Antonio and Victor and all of it couldn't touch her. He moved closer. I won't make that mistake twice. I'm not Isabella. No, you're not. You're stronger, smarter. You survived Marcus when she couldn't survive Antonio. His hand reached up, almost touched my face, then dropped. But that doesn't mean you're safe. I haven't felt safe in 3 years. At least here I know who the monsters are. That's a depressing distinction. It's an honest one. We stood there in the space between his past and my present, two people shaped by violence trying to figure out what came next. I have a rule too, Dominic said finally. Only fair. You don't put yourself in danger. Not for the cafe, not for Lila, not for anyone. You feel threatened, you tell me. You notice something wrong, you tell me. You want to leave this apartment, you tell me. That's 3 rules disguised as 1. Consider it a package deal. And if I break it, his eyes met mine. Then I'll do whatever it takes to keep you alive. Even if you hate me for it. I should have argued. Should have demanded independence, autonomy, all the things I'd fought so hard to reclaim. Instead, I said, okay, I'll follow your rule if you follow mine. Deal. We shook on it. His hand was warm, calloused, steadier than mine. When he let go, I felt the absence. The guest room, he started. I know where it is. I walked down the hallway, feeling his eyes on my back. The guest room was ridiculous, bigger than my entire apartment, with a bed that could sleep 4 and a bathroom carved from marble. Clothes hung in the closet, all my size. Toiletries lined the bathroom counter. Everything I needed, chosen by someone who'd been planning for this moment. I should have been angry about the presumption. Instead, I took a shower that lasted 30 minutes. Let the hot water wash away smoke and fear and the last remnants of the life I'd built. When I finally emerged, wrapped in a towel that was softer than anything I'd ever owned, I found new clothes laid out on the bed. Simple, comfortable, nothing expensive or presumptuous. I dressed and walked back out to the living room. Dominic was at his laptop, tie loosened, jacket discarded. He looked up when I entered. Can't sleep, he asked. Can you? Rarely. I sat on the couch across from him. What are you working on? Marcus's arrest warrant. Making sure there are no loopholes, no bail, no chances. He turned the laptop so I could see police reports, security footage, witness statements, everything documented, everything airtight. When will they pick him up? Tomorrow morning. I wanted to be sure you were safe first. And Victor? Victor's more complicated. We need evidence that can't be explained away by expensive lawyers. Wire transfers, recorded conversations, physical proof of trafficking. He closed the laptop. It takes time. How much time? Weeks, maybe months. And I stay here until then. Yes. I should have protested, should have demanded my life back. But the truth was, I didn't have a life to go back to. The cafe was ash. My apartment was compromised. Marcus knew where I worked, where I lived, probably where I bought my groceries. Invisibility had failed me. Maybe it was time to try something else. Teach me, I said. Dominic looked up, surprised. Teach you what? How to see what you see, how to notice things, how to... I struggled for words. How to stop being prey. Something shifted in his expression. Interest, respect, that's not something you learn overnight. I have weeks, maybe months. You said so yourself. He studied me for a long moment, then stood, moved to sit beside me on the couch. Give me your hand. I did. He turned it over, examined my palm like it held secrets. You bite your nails, he said. Stress response. You do it without thinking, which means you're always anxious, always waiting for the next bad thing. I know that already. Yes, but other people don't. And that tells them you're vulnerable. Easy to frighten. Easy to control. He traced a line across my palm. And you also wear your aunt's ring on a chain instead of your finger. You keep it hidden under your shirt. That means it's precious, yes, but also that you're afraid someone will take it, take her memory from you. My breath caught. How do you? I pay attention to details, to patterns, to the space between what people say and what they mean. He released my hand. That's the first lesson. Watch, listen. Notice the contradictions. What else? You flinch when people raise their voices. You position yourself near exits. You check your phone constantly, even though no one calls you. His voice was gentle. You're always ready to run. And running makes you visible to people like Victor, like Marcus. They hunt runners. Then what should I do instead? Stand still. Face the threat. Become the thing they don't expect. I thought about the cafe, about 3 years of keeping my head down, about how thoroughly that had protected me. Show me how, I said. Dominic smiled then, really smiled, the first genuine one I'd seen. It transformed his face, made him young again. Tomorrow, tonight, you sleep. Tomorrow, we begin. I stood to go back to the guest room, paused at the hallway. Dominic, yes, thank you. For keeping your promise to Isabella, even if it was 2 years late. His smile faded. Some promises can't be kept on time, only eventually. I nodded and walked away. That night, I fell asleep in a stranger's guest room 40 floors above the city. And for the first time in 3 years, I didn't check the locks. I didn't dream about Marcus. I dreamed about fire and hands that caught me before I fell, and the way Dominic's voice had sounded when he said I won't make that mistake twice. When I woke at dawn, my phone was buzzing. Unknown number. Not Marcus. He was in custody by now. Someone else? I answered, heavy breathing. Then, tell Corelli that taking what belongs to Marcus doesn't make it his. We're watching, Emma. We know where you sleep now. The line went dead. I walked out to the living room. Dominic was already awake, coffee in hand, looking out at the sunrise. They called, I said. He turned, face grim. Victor. I think so. He held out his hand for my phone. I gave it to him. He pulled up the number, traced it, made calls in rapid Italian. Then he looked at me. They know you're here. I gathered that. This changes things. Victor doesn't make threats lightly. If he's calling you directly, Dominic set down his coffee. He's escalating. Faster than I expected. What does that mean? It means the lessons start now. It means you don't leave this building without me. And it means... He paused. It means I need to show you something. He led me to a room I hadn't seen yet, behind a door that looked like part of the wall. Inside, screens, computers, maps with pins and photographs and red strings connecting faces to places. A war room. Victor's face was in the center. Around him, dozens of other photographs. Girls, women, some smiling, some terrified, some just blank. This is what he does, Dominic said quietly. This is who we're fighting. I stared at the faces, saw myself in some of them. The fear, the resignation, the hope dying behind their eyes. How do we stop him? Carefully, intelligently, and with evidence he can't deny. Dominic pulled out a folder, handed it to me. This arrived an hour ago. Courier delivery. No return address. I opened it. Inside, surveillance photographs. Of me. Dozens of them. At the cafe, at my apartment, walking home at night. Taken over months, maybe years. And underneath, a note in elegant handwriting. She was always the target. You just claimed her first. Let's see if you can keep her. V. My hands were shaking. He's been watching me. Even before Marcus. Even before you. Yes. Why? What does he want with me? Dominic's jaw clenched. He wants to prove I can't protect what's mine. He wants to make me watch you disappear the way I watched Isabella disappear. He took the folder from my trembling hands. He wants me to fail again. I'm not yours to lose. No, Dominic said softly. But he thinks you are. And that's what makes you valuable to him. I looked at the photographs again. Months of surveillance. Months of being watched while I thought I was invisible. Then let's prove him wrong, I said. Emma, you said the lessons start now. So teach me. Teach me how to be what he doesn't expect. I met Dominic's eyes. Teach me how to fight back. Something shifted in his expression. Pride, maybe, or recognition. All right, he said. But first, you need to understand something. What? Once we start this, once you become visible to Victor, to his world, there's no going back to invisible. You can't unhear what you'll hear. Can't unsee what you'll see. He moved closer. Are you sure? I thought about the cafe burning, about Marcus's smile in the courtroom, about 3 years of running that had gotten me exactly nowhere. I'm sure. Then we begin. He showed me the maps, the patterns, the way Victor moved his operations through the city like chess pieces. Showed me faces to memorize, names to remember, places to avoid. Showed me how to stop being prey. And somewhere in those hours of learning, of listening, of finally understanding the game I'd been playing without knowing the rules, somewhere in there, I stopped seeing Dominic as my captor, started seeing him as my teacher, my partner, maybe something more. But that realization would have to wait, because my phone buzzed again. Different number, same message. TikTok, Emma, time to come home. Emmy Marcus, who was supposed to be in custody, who was supposed to be handled. I showed Dominic the screen. His face went cold, hard, dangerous. That's impossible. The arrest warrant went through at 6 a.m. He grabbed his own phone, made a call, listened. His expression darkened with each passing second. What? I asked when he hung up. He's gone. Marcus posted bail an hour ago, courtesy of an anonymous benefactor. Dominic's voice was deadly quiet. Victor got him out. Why would he? Because Marcus is leverage, a weapon he can point at you whenever he wants. Dominic was already moving, already giving orders into his phone. Because this isn't about you or me anymore. It's about proving he's untouchable. So what do? Dominic looked at me, really looked at me. We show him he's wrong. The memory comes in fragments, like broken glass cutting through sleep. I'm 23 again, still believing in good men and second chances, still thinking that love means someone knowing your favorite coffee order, your mother's maiden name, the way you like your eggs scrambled with too much pepper, still thinking bruises were accidents. Marcus is cooking dinner, my favorite, he says, though I don't remember telling him what that is. The apartment smells like garlic and something burning. He's had 3 beers, maybe 4. I've stopped counting because counting feels like judgment, and judgment makes him quiet in ways that scare me more than yelling. You're late, he says without turning around. Traffic was bad. There was an accident on. You're always late. He sets down the spatula with careful precision. That's when I know. The careful movements, the controlled voice, makes a man wonder what you're really doing. I was at work, Marcus. You can call them. You can... The plate shatters against the wall beside my head. I don't flinch. I've learned not to flinch. Flinching makes it worse. Don't tell me what I can do. He's moving toward me now, and the kitchen feels smaller with each step. Don't ever tell me what I can do in my own house. It's my apartment, my name on the lease. But I don't say that. Saying that is what started it last time. I'm sorry, I whisper, and I hate myself for meaning it, for wanting to fix this. For thinking if I could just be better, quieter, more careful, he'd go back to being the man who brought me flowers on our second date. The memory fractures, skips forward. I'm on the floor. My ribs are screaming. There's blood in my mouth. I bit my tongue. Or maybe he hit me there. I can't remember. The ceiling is spinning and Marcus is crying, apologizing, saying he didn't mean it, saying I made him do it, saying he loves me in the same breath he's calling me a whore. And the worst part, the part that still makes me sick, is that I believe him. I believe I made him do it. I believe this is what love costs. I wake up gasping. Dominic's guest room materializing around me like a life raft. The sheets are damp with sweat. My heart is hammering so hard I can feel it in my throat. It's just a memory, just a memory. He can't hurt you here, except he can, because Victor got him out. Because he's somewhere in Chicago right now, walking free, planning his next move. Because I'm not invisible anymore, and that makes me a target. I check my phone. 4 a.m. Too early to be awake. Too late to fall back asleep. I pull on the clothes Dominic left for me. Soft cotton that doesn't feel like armor. and pad out to the living room on bare feet. He's there. Of course he's there. Sitting at his laptop with coffee going cold beside him, wearing yesterday's shirt with the sleeves rolled up. He looks exhausted. Looks like he's been there all night. You should sleep, I say. He doesn't startle, just looks up, eyes finding mine in the pre-dawn darkness. So should you. Bad dreams. I know. You were talking in your sleep. Heat crawls up my neck. What did I say? Nothing coherent? Just, he pauses. I just please and sorry over and over, like you were apologizing for existing. The truth of it cuts deeper than I expect. Old habits. Emma, don't. I move to the windows, press my forehead against the cool glass. Don't make it into something profound. It was just a nightmare. I used to get them all the time. They stopped eventually. When? When I stopped caring if he came back. The silence behind me is heavy with unasked questions. I can feel Dominic measuring his words, deciding what to say, what to leave buried. Do you want to talk about it? He asks finally. No. Do you need to? The question catches me off guard. Not want, need. Like he understands the difference. I turn to face him. He was cooking dinner. I came home late from work. My aunt's cafe, the one I run now. She was still alive then, still teaching me the espresso machine, still believing I'd be okay. My voice sounds distant, like it belongs to someone else. Marcus got mad, said I was cheating. I wasn't. I was just trying to keep my head above water. What happened? What always happened? He got loud. Then he got physical. Then he got apologetic. I wrap my arms around myself. The cycle. You know how it goes. How long? 8 months. 3 trips to the emergency room. 1 restraining order that he violated 7 times before I stopped calling the police. I meet Dominic's eyes. I left him when my aunt got diagnosed. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 6 months to live, the doctor said. She lasted 4. And Marcus. He showed up at her funeral, sat in the back, didn't say a word, just watched me, reminding me he was still there, still waiting. I laugh, but it sounds broken. The detective told me to be smart, stay in public places, vary my routine, like any of that mattered when he knew where I worked, where I lived, where I bought my groceries. Dominic stands, moves toward me, stops just close enough that I can feel his warmth. Why didn't you leave Chicago? And go where? I had no money, no family, no friends who weren't tired of hearing about it. I shrug. The cafe was all I had. My aunt left it to me in her will. Said it was a place people came to feel human. Said I should keep it that way. So you did. So I tried. I look out at the city waking up beneath us. I made myself small, stayed invisible, told myself if I could just disappear enough, he'd forget about me, find someone else to... I can't finish the sentence. To hurt, Dominic says quietly. Yeah, he's close enough now that I can smell his cologne, see the exhaustion around his eyes. It wasn't your fault. I know that. The words come automatically, empty. Everyone says that. The counselors, the lawyers, the women's shelter volunteers who gave me pamphlets about cycles of abuse and trauma bonding. I turn to face him fully. But knowing it and believing it are different things. Yes, they are. Something in his voice makes me look up. Really look. And I see it. The same exhaustion I wear. The same weight. Isabella, I say. You think you should have saved her. I know I should have. Even though she made her own choices. Even though you warned her. Even though you did everything you could. It wasn't enough. It never feels like enough, I whisper. That's the trap. You think if you'd just been smarter, faster, better, if you'd seen the signs earlier or fought harder or loved them more, you could have changed the outcome. But you couldn't. Because it was never about you. Dominic stares at me like I've said something revolutionary. Like I've unlocked a door he's been pushing against for years. How do you live with that? He asks. Poorly. With nightmares and 3 locks on my door and a cafe I can't let go of because it's all I have left of the person who actually saw me. I manage a small smile. But I do live with it. That's something. That's everything. We stand there in the space between night and dawn, 2 people shaped by the same violence, trying to figure out if survival is enough or if there's something more. My phone buzzes. I don't want to look. No, I have to anyway. It's a video message. No number, just a file. I open it with shaking hands. The footage is grainy, shot from a distance, but I recognize the location immediately, the alley behind the cafe. The place where the dumpsters live and the rats outnumber people. Where Lila sleeps. She's in the frame now, 16 years old with dyed purple hair and a backpack that holds everything she owns. I've been giving her leftover pastries, letting her use the bathroom, pretending I don't know she's been sleeping behind my building for the past 3 weeks. In the video, she's not alone. 2 men approach. She tries to run. They're faster. The footage cuts out. My hands are shaking so badly I drop the phone. Dominic catches it, watches the video, his face going cold and hard. When was this filmed? I don't know. Yesterday? Tonight? The timestamp's been stripped. I'm already moving, already reaching for my shoes. I have to go. I have to find her. She's just a kid. She doesn't have anything to do with this. Emma. Dominic catches my arm, gentle but firm. You can't go charging into this blind. That's what they want. That's the trap. I don't care. She's there because of me. Because I gave her food and water and a place to feel safe. And now Victor's men have her because... My voice cracks. Because I'm the target and she's just collateral damage. Exactly. Which means this is a message. For me. I pull away from him. Then what? We just leave her there. Let them... I can't finish the sentence. Can't let my mind go to the places it wants to go. No, we get her back. Intelligently, with a plan that doesn't get you both killed. He's already on his phone, already typing. Jimmy, I need a location trace on this video. Yes, now. I don't care if you're sleeping. Yes, that one. 5 minutes. He hangs up, looks at me. Get dressed, real clothes, shoes you can run in. You're bringing me. You think I can stop you? No. Then I'm bringing you. He moves to a closet I hadn't noticed, pulls out a small black case, opens it to reveal equipment I don't recognize. But we do this my way, my rules. You stay where I tell you. You run when I say run. You don't play hero. Understood? I nod. Don't trust my voice. Emma. He waits until I meet his eyes. Lila isn't Isabella. This ends differently. Promise? I promise. 20 minutes later, we're in Dominic's car. Something low and fast and expensive that purrs like a predator. Jimmy's driving. Another man I don't recognize rides shotgun, wearing body armor like it's casual Friday. I'm in the back with Dominic, watching the city blur past. The video was filmed 3 hours ago, Dominic says, eyes on his phone. Location tagged to a warehouse in the industrial district, Victor's territory. Is she still alive? Yes. If he wanted her dead, we'd have gotten a different video. His jaw tightens. He wants leverage. Wants to prove he can take what's mine whenever he wants. I'm not yours. I know. He doesn't. Dominic finally looks up from his phone. When we get there, you stay in the car. No arguments. No negotiations. You stay with Jimmy while I handle this. No. Emma. She knows me. She trusts me. If you come in there with guns and whatever else you're planning, she'll be terrified. She needs to see a familiar face. I lean forward. I'm going in. You can protect me or you can waste time arguing. Your choice. The man in the passenger seat laughs. I like her. Shut up, Marco, Dominic says, but there's no heat in it. He's studying me like I'm a puzzle he can't quite solve. You understand what you're asking. I understand what I'm doing. There's a difference. All right, but you wear this. He pulls out a small device, clips it to my collar. Tracker, audio feed. You get in trouble, we'll know. What kind of trouble? The kind where you stop talking or start screaming. He clips another device to his own shirt. Two-way communication. I'll be in your ear the whole time. Jimmy pulls up 3 blocks from the warehouse, cuts the engine. We sit in darkness. The building has 3 entrances, Dominic says, pulling up blueprints on his phone. Front loading dock, covered by cameras. Side service door, locked from inside. Backfire exit, our entry point. What about guards? At least 4, maybe more. He glances at Marco. You take the front, Create a distraction, something loud. How loud? Loud enough they leave their posts. Not loud enough the police come. Marco grins. I can work with that. We exit the car silently. The night is cold, smells like oil and rust and the lake. My heart is hammering, but my hands are steady. Dominic leads us through shadows, moving like he was born to them. Marco peels off toward the front. Jimmy stays close behind me, a reassuring presence. The fire exit is exactly where the blueprint said. Dominic pulls out tools I don't recognize, works the lock with practiced efficiency. 30 seconds, the door opens without a sound. Inside, the warehouse is dark, empty, too empty. Something's wrong, I whisper. I know. Dominic's voice is barely audible. Stay close. We move through the darkness, following sounds, voices, muffled crying. My stomach clenches. That's Lila, has to be. We round a corner. There's light ahead. A room with the door open. Lila's inside, tied to a chair, tape over her mouth. But she's not alone. Marcus is there, standing behind her, holding something, a lighter. I was wondering when you'd show up, he says, his voice carrying that same casual cruelty I remember. Come on in, I've been waiting. Dominic's hand on my arm stops me, but I pull away. Let her go, Marcus. This is between us. You're right, it is. He flicks the lighter. On, off, on, off. But Victor says I can't have you unless I prove I can hurt you first. So, here we are. I step into the light. Marcus smiles. That same smile from the courtroom, from the funeral, from every moment he's proven that restraining orders are just paper. Emma, don't! Dominic's voice in my ear, tight with warning. I'm sorry, I whisper. Too quiet for Marcus to hear. Loud enough for Dominic to understand. Then I walk straight toward the monster I've spent 3 years running from. Marcus wasn't expecting that. His smile falters. What are you? You wanted me to come home. Here I am. I keep walking. Keep my eyes on his. Let her go. Take me instead. That's what you want, right? Me apologizing. Me begging. Me... I choke on the words. Me being sorry for leaving you. Emma, stop. Dominic's voice is sharp now, afraid. But I can't stop. Won't stop. Because I finally understand. I spent 3 years being invisible, being small, being prey. And it didn't protect me at all. Marcus is still talking, still threatening, still flicking that lighter. But I'm not listening anymore. I'm looking at Lila. At her terrified eyes above the tape. At the purple hair and the backpack and the 16 years she hasn't lived yet. At everything I used to be before I learned to disappear. You know what I realized? I say, cutting through Marcus's monologue. You're not powerful, you're pathetic. You need me scared because without my fear, you're just a sad man who can't hold a job and blames everyone else for his failures. His face goes red. You don't get to... I do, actually. I get to say every single thing I never said, because you know what's different this time. I take another step. I'm not alone. The lights go out. Gunfire. Shouting. Chaos. Someone grabs me. Dominic. I know his touch now. And pulls me down. I hear Marcus yelling. Hear the chair crash as Lila falls. I've got the girl. Marco's voice. Emma, you're 6 o'clock. I turn. See Marcus lunging toward me in the darkness. The lighter still burning. Dominic moves faster. The sound of impact. Marcus hits the ground. Doesn't get back up. The lights flicker on. Emergency generators. I see everything at once. Jimmy cutting Lila free, Marco covering the exits, Dominic standing over Marcus's unconscious body like an avenging angel, and me standing, not running, not hiding, not invisible anymore. Is he dead? My voice sounds strange, distant. No, but he'll wish he was. Dominic pulls out his phone. Detective Chen, I have a gift for you. Marcus Tate, kidnapping, arson, violation of a restraining order. Yes, all of it on video. He glances at me. No, she's safe. Both of them are. Lila crashes into me, sobbing. I hold her while she shakes, while the adrenaline drains and leaves us both hollow. I'm sorry, I whisper. I'm so sorry. This is my fault. Are you insane? She pulls back, glaring through tears. You just walked into a room with that psycho to save me. That's like That's the most badass thing anyone's ever done. I was terrified. Yeah, but you did it anyway. She hugs me again. That's what brave means. Sirens in the distance, growing closer. Dominic's hand on my shoulder. We need to leave. Before Chen gets here and starts asking questions I don't want to answer. We walk out together, me and Lila and Dominic and his men, leaving Marcus on the floor for the police to find. In the car, Lila falls asleep against my shoulder. Jimmy drives in silence. Dominic watches the city pass, his hand close enough to mine that I can feel the warmth. Thank you, I say quietly. You saved her, not me. We saved her. He looks at me then, really looks. You're not who I expected. What did you expect? Someone who needed saving. He says it without judgment, just fact. But you don't, do you? You just needed someone to stand beside you while you saved yourself. The truth of it settles over me like sunlight. What happens now? I ask. Now Marcus goes to prison. For a long time. No bail. No deals. And Victor, his jaw tightens. Victor learns that taking what's mine has consequences. I know. His hand finds mine. Squeezes once. But let me believe it for tonight. Let me believe I kept my promise. I squeeze back. My phone buzzes. One last time. A message from an unknown number? I almost don't open it. Do anyway. Just 3 words. Well played. Emma. Below it, a photograph. The warehouse. From the outside, showing all of us leaving. Victor. Watching. Waiting. This wasn't the end. It was barely the beginning. The safe house wasn't what I expected. I thought Dominic would take us back to the penthouse, back to those floor-to-ceiling windows and marble surfaces that made everything feel like a museum exhibit. Instead, Jimmy drove us to a neighborhood I didn't recognize, pulled into an underground garage beneath a modest brownstone, and led us through a door that required 3 separate security checks. Inside was warmth, actual warmth, exposed brick walls, worn leather furniture, bookshelves sagging under the weight of their contents, a kitchen that looked used, lived in, human. This was Isabella's, Dominic said quietly, watching me take it in. She bought it when she turned 21, said she needed a place that was hers, not the family's. I touched the spine of a cookbook on the counter, its pages marked with handwritten notes. You kept everything. I couldn't. He stopped. Started again. I couldn't let her disappear completely. Leela had collapsed on the couch the moment we arrived, still wearing her backpack like armor. She was asleep now, curled into herself, one hand clutching the blanket Marco had draped over her. She'll be safe here, Dominic said. Marco will stay with her. Jimmy's coordinating with social services quietly. She'll have options when she wakes up. She doesn't trust social services. They've failed her before? Then she stays here as long as she needs. He said it simply, like housing a traumatized teenager was just another Tuesday. The building's secure. She'll have her own room, food, whatever she needs. I looked at him, really looked at him. At the man who'd invaded my life with cash and protection and rules I didn't ask for. Who'd somehow become the person standing between me and the darkness. Why? I asked. Why do you care so much? Because no one cared about Isabella. His voice was raw, unguarded. Because I watched her disappear into Antonio's world. And everyone, our father, our cousins, the family business, everyone said it was her choice, her mistake. As if loving the wrong person was a crime punishable by death. It wasn't your fault, wasn't it? He moved to the window, stared out at the street. I knew what Antonio was, knew who owned him. I could have stopped the wedding, could have locked her away somewhere safe, could have killed him before he had the chance to kill her, and she would have hated you for it. She'd be alive. The certainty in those words, the absolute conviction that her hatred would have been worth her life, made something crack open in my chest. You can't save people who don't want to be saved, I said quietly. Believe me, I tried. With Marcus, with myself, with every moment I thought if I just loved him better or explained myself clearer or apologized more sincerely, he'd go back to being the man I thought he was. I wrapped my arms around myself, but that man never existed. I was in love with the story I told myself, and by the time I realized it, I'd already lost 2 years and 3 ribs and the ability to sleep without checking every lock. Dominic turned to face me. His eyes were dark, haunted. How did you finally leave? My aunt called me one night, 3 a.m. I answered even though Marcus was asleep beside me, even though answering would mean questions I couldn't answer. I could still hear her voice, weak, frightened, so unlike the woman who'd raised me. She said, "Emma, I'm dying. Come home." And I walked out of that apartment with nothing but my phone and my keys. Left everything else behind. Did he come after you? Of course he did. Showed up at the hospital, at her funeral, at the cafe. Sent flowers and threats in equal measure. But I was different by then. Watching someone you love die changes you. Makes you realize that some things are worse than being hurt. Like wasting the time you have left being afraid. Is that what tonight was about? Not being afraid anymore. I thought about walking toward Marcus with that lighter in his hand. About the terror singing through my veins and the certainty beneath it. That I'd rather die standing than live on my knees. Tonight was about remembering who I used to be. Before him. Before the fear. I met Dominic's eyes. And realizing I could be her again. That I never really stopped being her. I just forgot how to see myself clearly. Something shifted in his expression. Softened. "I see you clearly." I know. The words came out softer than I intended. That's what scares me most. Why? Because you see the parts I spent 3 years hiding. The anger, the recklessness, the woman who walks toward danger instead of away from it. I laughed, but it sounded broken. You see me at my worst and you don't look away. What does that say about you? That I recognize myself in you. He moved closer. Close enough that I could count the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. We're the same, Emma. Both trying to outrun the past. Both carrying people we couldn't save. Both pretending we're stronger than we are because the alternative is admitting we're barely holding on. The truth of it hit like a blow. Because he was right. I'd spent 3 years building walls and calling it strength. Staying invisible and calling it survival. Running from Marcus and calling it moving forward. But none of it was real. None of it was healing. It was just waiting for the next bad thing. For the moment everything I'd built came crashing down, which it had 3 days ago, when Dominic Corelli walked into my cafe and refused to let me disappear. "I don't know how to do this," I whispered. "How to be visible again. How to trust that the people who see me won't use it against me. You do it badly at first. You flinch. You pull back. You test every boundary to see which ones hold." His hand came up, almost touched my face, then dropped. And slowly, so slowly you barely notice, you start to believe that maybe, just maybe, being seen isn't the same as being targeted. How long did it take you to believe that? "I'll let you know when it happens." I laughed, actually laughed, and some of the tension in my chest loosened. "You're not exactly selling this whole trust people thing. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm trying to be honest." He gestured at the safe house, at Lila sleeping on the couch, at the life we'd walked away from tonight. "This is who I am, Emma. A man who makes promises he can't keep and carries ghosts he can't bury. A man who uses violence to solve problems because he never learned another language. A man who..." He stopped, started again. "A man who saw you making coffee and thought, 'There, that's what I'm fighting for.' That small moment of grace in a graceless world." My breath caught. "I'm not graceful. I'm a mess. You're human. It's the same thing." We stood there in Isabella's living room with its worn furniture and handwritten recipes, and I felt something shift. Not falling. Not yet. But leaning toward possibility, toward trust, toward the terrifying idea that maybe Dominic was right. Maybe being seen wasn't the end of safety. Maybe it was the beginning of something else entirely. My phone shattered the moment, buzzing against my hip like an angry wasp. I pulled it out. Unknown number. Again. "Don't answer it," Dominic said. I answered it anyway, put it on speaker. "Emma." The voice was cultured, amused, nothing like Marcus's barely controlled rage. "I hope you're enjoying your little victory, rescuing the girl, playing hero, very cinematic. Who is this?" "You know who I am." Dominic certainly does. A pause. Hello, Dominic. Still trying to save everyone. How's that working out for you? Victor. Dominic's voice went cold, hard. You're wasting your time. Marcus is in custody. Your leverage is gone. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, you just showed me exactly what you'll sacrifice to keep Emma safe. That's not leverage disappearing. That's leverage multiplying. Victor's laugh was soft, dangerous. The girl was just a test. To see if the great Dominic Corelli would risk exposure, risk his carefully built evidence and his righteous crusade, to save one insignificant child. She's not insignificant. To me, she is, but to Emma, to you, another laugh. Everything is significant when you care. Every person becomes a pressure point. Every connection becomes a weapon I can use against you. My stomach clenched. What do you want? Manners. Excellent. I want you to understand something, Emma. Dominic thinks he's protecting you. He thinks if he keeps you hidden and monitored and surrounded by armed men, you'll be safe from people like me. But he's wrong. Victor's voice dropped, became intimate, almost kind. Because I don't need to touch you to hurt you. I just need to make him watch while I destroy everything he thinks he's protecting. Your cafe was just the beginning. The cafe's already gone. The building is gone. But the insurance, the permits to rebuild, the zoning approvals? A pause loaded with meaning. All of that goes through channels I control. You'll spend months navigating bureaucracy. Years, maybe. And every step of the way, you'll remember, Victor Rinaldi could have made this easy. Instead, he chose to make it impossible. Dominic's jaw clenched. We're not negotiating with you. I'm not asking you to. I'm simply explaining reality. Victor sighed. Theatrical. You've made an enemy of me, Dominic. That has consequences. For you, for your business, for everyone you've decided to care about. The only question now is how much pain you're willing to endure before you admit defeat. I don't admit defeat. No. You just watch people die instead. How many now? Your mother. Your sister. How many more before you realize you're not the hero of this story? You're the curse. The line went dead. I watched the blood drain from Dominic's face. Watched him go somewhere else entirely. Somewhere dark and haunted where Victor's words found their mark. He's wrong. I said. You're not a curse. I'm exactly what he said. Dominic's voice was hollow, empty. Everyone I try to protect ends up hurt. My mother died because my father's enemies wanted to send a message. Isabella died because I couldn't stop her from loving a monster. And you, he looked at me finally. You lost your cafe because I decided to use it. To use you. Victor's right. I'm not protection. I'm a liability. That's not... He owns the permits office. The insurance companies, probably half the city council. Dominic was pacing now, hands running through his hair. He can make sure you never rebuild, never recover. And he'll do it just to prove he can, just to make me watch. Then let him. The words came out stronger than I felt. Let him play his games and pull his strings. I don't care about the cafe anymore. Emma, I mean it. That building, it's gone. I mourned it. But it was just a place. Just bricks and memories and my aunt's espresso machine. I moved closer, made him look at me. What I can't lose, what I won't let him take, is this. Us. Whatever we're building here. We're not building anything. I'm getting you killed. You're keeping me alive. For how long? His voice cracked. Until Victor gets bored with games and decides to finish this. Until he sends someone better than Marcus. Until he stops making threats and starts making examples. Then we stop him first. With what? He owns this city. Owns the ports and the permits and the police. I've been gathering evidence for 6 months and it's not enough. Won't ever be enough. Men like Victor don't go to prison. They buy their way out or disappear or get replaced by someone worse. So we make him disappear. The words hung between us. Heavy. Dangerous. True. Dominic stared at me like I'd suggested we sprout wings and fly. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. You're trying to fight him with evidence and legal procedure and rules he doesn't follow. But you know another way. The way you handled Antonio. The way you handle everyone who threatens what's yours. I took a breath. So handle him. Emma, I'm not naive. I know what that means. I know what you'd have to do. And I'm telling you, my voice didn't shake, didn't waver. I'm telling you, I understand. And I won't judge you for it. You should. His hands clenched at his sides. You should run from this, from me, from everything I represent. I spent 3 years running. It didn't work. I closed the distance between us. So I'm staying. I'm standing here telling you that I see who you are, not just the parts you show me, but the parts you hide, the violence, the darkness, the man who keeps his promises even when they cost him everything. I reached up, made him meet my eyes, and I'm choosing you anyway. For a long moment, he didn't move, didn't breathe, just stared at me like I was something impossible, something dangerous. Then his hand came up, cupped my face with devastating gentleness. You have no idea what you're choosing. Then show me. He kissed me. Not gently, not carefully. Like he'd been holding back for days and couldn't anymore. Like I was air and he'd been drowning. I kissed him back. Poured 3 years of fear and anger and barely surviving into it. Tasted coffee and something darker, desperation, maybe, or recognition. 2 people who'd spent so long being invisible finally letting themselves be seen. When we broke apart, we were both shaking. This is a mistake, he whispered against my forehead. Probably. Victor will use this. Use us. Let him try. Dominic pulled back enough to see my face. His thumb traced my cheekbone, my jaw, the scar Marcus had left below my ear. If we do this, if we go after Victor the way you're suggesting, there's no coming back. No pretending you didn't know. No claiming innocence. I stopped being innocent the day Marcus put me in the hospital. I stopped caring about it the day my aunt died. I caught his hand, held it against my face. Show me how to be dangerous instead. Show me how to fight back. Something shifted in his expression. Decision made. Line crossed. All right, he said. But you need to understand what that means. Need to see it. Not the sanitized version, the real thing. Show me. He pulled out his phone, pulled up a video file I hadn't seen before. Hit play. The footage was from a warehouse. Different from where we'd found Lila. Darker. The kind of place where bad things happened and nobody asked questions. A man was tied to a chair. Even through the grainy footage, I could see his terror. Dominic walked into frame. Younger, maybe 5 years ago, but the same cold purpose in his movements. Where is she? His voice was calm, almost gentle. The man spit blood. I don't know what you're... Dominic moved, too fast for the camera to catch. The man screamed, "Where is she? I don't..." Another movement, another scream. This went on, for minutes that felt like hours. Dominic never raised his voice, never lost control, just methodically, efficiently, extracted the information he needed. When the man finally broke, gave up Antonio's location, Dominic leaned in close. "Thank you," he said, almost kindly. "Now you understand. I keep my promises, always." The footage cut out. I stood there in Isabella's living room, my heart pounding, my hands steady. "And that's who I am," Dominic said quietly. "That's what you're choosing." I thought about Marcus, about 3 years of fear, about Lila's terrified face and the cafe burning, and Victor's cultured voice promising more pain, more loss, more watching people I cared about suffer. I thought about the woman I'd been, the one who made herself invisible and called it survival. And I thought about who I wanted to become. "Okay," I said. "Okay, teach me." I met his eyes. "Teach me how to be that, how to make promises and keep them, how to protect what's mine without apologizing for it." Dominic stared at me for a long moment. Then he smiled, really smiled, sharp and dangerous and alive. "You're sure?" "I'm terrified, but yes, I'm sure." "Then we start tomorrow, tonight." He pulled me close again. "Tonight you rest. Tomorrow, we plan." And soon, very soon, Victor Rinaldi learns what happens when he threatens what's mine. I'm not... You are. He said it with absolute certainty. You became mine the moment you made me coffee. The moment you looked at me like I was human instead of monster. The moment you chose to stay instead of run. His hand threaded through my hair. And I'm yours, for better or worse, until this ends. How does it end? With Victor gone, with you safe, with us. He stopped. With us figuring out what comes after surviving. My phone buzzed. One last time, a photo. The safe house. From outside, showing the windows, the address visible on the building next door, and a message. Sweet dreams, Emma. I'll be watching. I showed Dominic. His face went cold, hard, dangerous. Pack your things, he said. We're leaving. Now. Where? Somewhere he can't find you, can't watch you, can't touch you. He was already moving, already gathering Lila's sleeping form. Somewhere I can finish this without worrying you'll be the price I pay for winning. Dominic, no arguments, no negotiations. He looked at me, and I saw it, the fear beneath the fury. I won't lose you the way I lost her. I won't watch Victor take another person. He stopped. Another person who matters. I wanted to argue. Wanted to stay and fight and prove I wasn't someone who needed protecting. But I looked at Lila, unconscious and vulnerable, looked at the photograph of Isabella on the mantle, looked at Dominic's face and saw the weight of every promise he'd failed to keep. Okay, I said, but this is temporary, just until you handle Victor. Then I come back, we face whatever comes next together. Together, he agreed. Within 10 minutes, we were gone. The safe house empty. The lights off. Victor's watchers would report back. Would tell him we'd run. Good. Let him think he'd won. Let him get comfortable, confident, careless. Because I'd learned something tonight. Something essential. Running didn't make you safe. Standing still and letting yourself be seen, letting yourself be dangerous, that's what kept you alive. And Dominic was about to teach me how. The cabin sat at the end of a dirt road that existed on no map I'd ever seen. Dominic drove us there himself. No Jimmy, no Marco, just the three of us and the darkness pressing against the windshield. Lila slept in the back seat, her purple hair catching moonlight every time we passed under a break in the trees. She hadn't woken when we'd carried her from the safe house, hadn't stirred when Dominic lifted her like she weighed nothing, like she was something precious instead of just another complication in his war with Victor. How far? I asked, watching the odometer climb. Far enough. His hands were steady on the wheel, but I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his jaw kept clenching. 2 hours north. The property's in a trust Isabella set up. No paper trail connecting it to me. She thought of everything. She had to. Our father. He stopped, reconsidered. Our father made enemies the way other people make small talk. Isabella learned young that having an exit strategy wasn't paranoia, it was survival. I thought about my own exit strategies. The cash I'd kept hidden in my apartment. The bus schedule I'd memorized. The fantasy of disappearing that I'd nurtured for 3 years like a secret garden. Someday I'd just leave, just vanish, and Marcus would wake up to find me gone like I'd never existed at all. Except I'd never done it. Never taken that final step. Always found another reason to stay. I used to think about running. I said quietly. After Marcus, after everything, I'd lie awake planning it. Where I'd go, who I'd become, how thoroughly I could erase myself. Why didn't you? Because running meant he won, meant he'd taken everything from me. My city, my aunt's cafe, my whole life, and I'd just let him have it. I watched the trees blur past, so I stayed, made myself invisible instead. Thought if I could just be quiet enough, small enough, forgettable enough, I'd be safe. But you weren't. No. I looked at him then, his profile carved in shadow and dashboard light. I wasn't, because men like Marcus, like Victor, they don't want you invisible. They want you erased, and there's a difference. Dominic's hand found mine across the console, squeezed once. You're not erased. You're right here. For how long? Until Victor finds this place too. Until the next threat, the next fire, the next... I couldn't finish. Until I end it. His voice held that same cold certainty I'd heard in the warehouse video. Until Victor Rinaldi learns what happens when he mistakes patience for weakness. The cabin appeared suddenly, a shape darker than the surrounding darkness, tucked against the base of a mountain I couldn't see, but could feel looming. Dominic cut the engine. The silence rushed in like water, broken only by Lila's soft breathing and the tick of cooling metal. I'll get her settled, he said. You should rest. I'm not tired. Emma, I'm not. I got out of the car before he could argue, before the weight of everything that had happened could crush me. I need to move, need to think. Just give me a minute. I walked away from the cabin, following a path my feet found more than my eyes. The air was different here, cleaner, colder, untouched by the city's exhaust and desperation. I could hear water somewhere close, a stream talking to itself in the dark. I'd lived in Chicago my whole life, had never been this far into nothing. It should have terrified me. Instead, I felt something else. Something I couldn't name. Freedom, maybe, or its opposite. There's a clearing just ahead. Dominic's voice behind me. I hadn't heard him approach. Had he always moved that quietly? Or was I just learning to recognize his presence the way you learn a new language, by immersion and repetition? Lila? I asked. Asleep in the guest room, she didn't even wake up when I carried her inside. He moved to stand beside me, close enough that our shoulders almost touched. She's exhausted. The kind of exhaustion that comes from never feeling safe. I remember that feeling. So do I. We stood there in the darkness between the cabin and the clearing. Two people who'd learned the same hard lessons about survival, about the cost of being seen. Tell me about your father, I said. Not a question, a request. Dominic was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, he was old world, Sicilian to his bones. Believed family was everything, which meant family could justify anything. Murder, extortion, watching your mother die from cancer because taking her to the hospital would mean questions we couldn't answer. She died at home? She died in pain, begging him to help her. And he... Dominic's voice cracked. He told her to be strong, to think of the family, to die quietly so we wouldn't be exposed. How old were you? 12. Isabella was 9. He pulled out a cigarette, I hadn't known he smoked, and lit it with shaking hands. We watched her waste away over 6 months, watched her lose the ability to walk, to speak, to recognize us. And the whole time, he forbade us from crying, said tears were weakness, said Corelli men don't break. But you did. The day she died, I locked myself in my room and cried until I threw up. He heard me, came in, dragged me out by my hair and told me if I ever showed that kind of weakness again, I'd find out what real pain felt like. Dominic touched his jaw, the scar I'd noticed that first night. I told him I hated him. He gave me this, said now I'd have something to remember. Hate is just love that's learned to hide. I reached up without thinking, traced that thin white line with my fingertips. He was wrong. Was he? Everything I've done since then, every choice, every promise, every person I've hurt, it all comes back to that moment, to proving I wasn't weak, that I could protect what he couldn't, that I'd never stand by and watch someone I loved suffer. That's not hate. I struggled for the word. That's love that hasn't learned to forgive itself. He looked at me then, something raw and unguarded in his eyes. When did you get so wise? When I stopped believing that surviving meant the same thing as living. I let my hand drop, but stayed close. You want to know what I learned in those 3 years with Marcus? That you can survive almost anything. Your body keeps going, breathing, eating, moving through the world like everything's normal. But you're not living. You're just waiting for permission to exist again. For someone to tell you you're allowed to take up space. And now I'm done waiting. I turned to face him fully. You asked me earlier if I understood what I was choosing. If I knew what it meant to stand beside you while you handled Victor your way. Emma, I do understand. I understand that what you're planning isn't legal or clean or anything that would hold up in court. I understand that it makes me complicit. That it changes who I am, fundamentally. That there's no coming back from it. I took a breath, and I'm choosing it anyway. Not because I'm broken or damaged or too scared to walk away, but because I'm tired of letting men like Victor and Marcus write the rules. Tired of being the person things happen to instead of the person who makes things happen. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. Because if I don't, if I let you handle this alone while I hide in a cabin waiting to be safe, then I'm still that woman making herself invisible. Still convinced that being small equals being protected. I moved closer. I won't be her anymore. Can't be her. She almost got me killed. Dominic studied my face like he was memorizing it. If we do this, If you really want to be part of this, then you need to know something. What? Victor isn't like Marcus. Marcus was rage and impulse and violence that came from feeling powerless. Victor is... He searched for words. Victor is calculated, patient. He doesn't hurt people because he's angry. He hurts them because it's profitable, because it sends messages, because he can. You're trying to scare me. I'm trying to make sure you understand what you're walking into. The kind of man who photographs you sleeping and sends it like a greeting card, who burns down your cafe and calls it an opening move, who uses a 16-year-old girl as bait and considers it strategy. Dominic's hands clenched. If we come at him wrong, if we're not perfect, he won't just kill us. He'll make examples of us, make sure everyone knows what happens when you challenge Victor Rinaldi. Then we'll be perfect. Emma, teach me. I cut him off. You said you would. Teach me how to see what you see, how to think like he thinks, how to anticipate his moves before he makes them. That's not something you learn in a few days. Then we have a few days. Use them. He stared at me for a long moment, then pulled out his phone, pulled up a photograph. Victor Rinaldi, late 50s, silver hair, expensive suit, kind eyes, grandfather eyes. Tell me what you see, Dominic said. I studied the image. I see a man who looks like he should be reading bedtime stories. Not... I stopped. Started again. That's the point, isn't it? He looks harmless, approachable, safe. Exactly. Victor's greatest weapon isn't violence. It's that face, that smile, the way he makes people feel comfortable right up until the moment he destroys them. Dominic swiped to another photo. Victor at a charity gala, shaking hands with the mayor. He's donated millions to children's hospitals, funds scholarships, sits on the board of half a dozen nonprofits. Ask anyone in Chicago who doesn't know what he really does, and they'll tell you Victor Rinaldi is a pillar of the community. But you know different. I know he moves women and girls through his shipping company like cargo. I know he owns judges and police captains and city councilmen. I know every legitimate dollar he donates is paid for with 10 dirty ones. He swiped again. Another photo, younger girls, different faces, all looking at the camera with the same hollow expression. I know these are just the ones we've found. The ones who survived long enough to be photographed. My stomach clenched. How many? We're not sure. Dozens. Maybe hundreds over the years. His voice was flat, clinical, the only way to talk about horror without drowning in it. He brings them in through the port, promises them work, education, better lives. By the time they realize what's really happening, they're too trapped to escape. No papers, no money, no one to trust. And the police don't care? The police who aren't on his payroll care very much. Detective Chen has been trying to build a case for years. But Victor's smart. He never touches the girls himself. Never gets close enough for charges to stick. He has layers. Lieutenants who run the operations, drivers who handle transport, enforcers who deal with problems. Everything's compartmentalized. Everyone's disposable. Except Victor. Except Victor. Dominic put his phone away. That's why evidence doesn't work. That's why the legal system will never touch him. He's built an empire where he's untouchable, and every attempt to take him down just makes him more careful. So what's your plan? I'm going to make him feel threatened. Not by the law. He owns the law. By something worse. Dominic looked at me. By losing control? I don't understand. Victor's power comes from fear. From everyone knowing he can hurt them and there's nothing they can do about it. But if people started to believe he wasn't untouchable, if his operations started failing, his protection started crumbling, his reputation started cracking. He smiled, but it was cold. Then he's just another criminal, vulnerable, mortal, able to be replaced. You're going to dismantle his empire. I'm going to burn it down. He said it like a promise, like a vow. Every operation, every protection racket, every dirty deal. I'm going to take it all apart piece by piece until there's nothing left but Victor standing alone. And then, he didn't finish. He didn't have to. When do we start? I asked. Tomorrow. Tonight you rest. Tomorrow I show you how to read people, how to spot lies, how to know when someone's dangerous before they make a move. Like you knew with Marcus. I knew about Marcus before I ever walked into your cafe. Knew his history, his pattern, his triggers. I knew he'd come for you eventually. The only question was when. Dominic's expression softened. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. Sorry I let you think you were safe. I was never safe. You just made me aware of it. Is that better or worse? I thought about 3 years of checking locks. 3 years of jumping at sudden noises. 3 years of living like I was already dead, just waiting for my body to catch up. Better, I said finally, because at least now I know what I'm fighting. We walked back to the cabin together. Inside, it was warmer than I'd expected. Dominic must have had it prepared, must have known we'd need a place to disappear to. The main room had a fireplace, a worn couch, bookshelves full of what looked like Isabella's collection. Through an open door, I could see Lila curled in a bed, finally looking peaceful. There's another bedroom upstairs, Dominic said. Or you can stay down here, I cut him off. With you. If you want. He kissed me instead of answering. Slower this time, deliberate, like we had all the time in the world instead of borrowed hours in a cabin that didn't exist on any map. When we broke apart, his forehead rested against mine. I can't promise you safety, he whispered. Can't promise this ends well. Can't promise anything except that I'll fight for you until there's nothing left of me to fight with. Then promise me that. Done. We moved to the couch, sat tangled together watching flames in the fireplace paint shadows on the walls. His hand found mine. Our fingers interlocked. Tell me something true, I said quietly. Something you've never told anyone. Dominic was quiet for a long moment. Then, I'm terrified of losing you. Not because you need protecting, not because Victor might take you, but because... He stopped, started again. Because for the first time since Isabella died, I feel like I'm actually living instead of just existing. And the thought of going back to that emptiness... His hand tightened on mine. It's worse than death. The confession hung between us, raw and honest and so vulnerable it hurt to hear. I'm terrified too, I whispered. I'm terrified that I've spent 3 years learning to survive alone and now I don't know how to survive with someone. Terrified that I'll sabotage this because being hurt is familiar and being happy isn't. Terrified that... My voice cracked. That one day you'll look at me and see damage instead of strength. See the woman Marcus broke instead of the woman I'm trying to become. I see both. He turned to face me fully. I see the woman who survived, and the woman who's still surviving, and the woman who's learning she doesn't have to do it alone. All of them are you. All of them are strong. Something in my chest cracked open. Not breaking. Expanding. I kissed him again. Deeper this time. Desperate. Trying to communicate everything I couldn't find words for. Gratitude and terror and trust and the terrifying possibility that maybe, just maybe, I was allowed to want this. We didn't sleep together. Not like that. Not yet. Just lay tangled on the couch while the fire died and dawn crept closer. 2 people learning that intimacy wasn't always physical. Sometimes it was just being willing to be seen. I woke to voices. Lila was up, standing in the kitchen with a cup of tea, talking to Dominic in low tones. I stayed still, watching them through half-closed eyes. Is she okay? Lila asked. She's stronger than she knows. That's what scares me. Strong people break differently. Louder. Lila set down her cup. My mom was strong, right up until she wasn't. Emma's not your mother. How do you know? Because she's still fighting, still choosing to stand instead of fall. Dominic glanced toward where I lay. And because she has people who won't let her break alone, you love her. Not a question. A fact. Dominic didn't answer for a long moment. Then, so quietly, I almost didn't hear. Yes. My breath caught. Does she know? Lila asked. She will. When this is over. When she's safe. What if safe never comes? Then I'll tell her anyway. Let her decide if it's worth the risk. I pretended to wake then, stretching and yawning like I'd heard nothing. Dominic looked at me with those dark, knowing eyes, and I wondered if he knew. If he'd meant for me to hear. Coffee? He offered. Please. The day passed in strange domesticity. Lila made breakfast. Scrambled eggs with too much pepper, just how I liked them even though I'd never told her. Dominic worked on his laptop, making calls in Italian that I didn't understand but could feel the weight of. I read one of Isabella's books, losing myself in someone else's story. It felt normal, almost safe, which is exactly when my phone rang. Unknown number. Always unknown numbers. I answered. Put it on speaker. Emma. Detective Chen's voice. Tight with urgency. Where are you? Why? Because Marcus escaped custody 3 hours ago, and we found a map in his cell, marked with your aunt's address, your apartment, the cafe. A pause. And a location in the woods. I don't know where, but how did he escape? Dominic's voice, sharp and cold. Someone paid his bail, then arranged a transport accident. Driver's in the hospital. Guards are missing. And Marcus... Chen's voice dropped. Marcus is in the wind, with help. Professional help. Victor. It had to be. We're tracking him, Chen continued. But I need you to tell me where you are. Need to send protection. We have protection, Dominic said, and ended the call. He was already moving. Already grabbing weapons I hadn't known he'd brought. He's coming here. Don't know how he found us, but he's coming. How long do we have? Hours. Maybe less. He pressed a gun into my hands. You know how to use this? No. Then you're about to learn. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the trees gold and red and beautiful. Inside, we prepared for war. And I realized there was no safe, there was no hiding. There was only this, standing with the people you chose, fighting for the life you wanted, refusing to disappear. Marcus was coming. Let him come. This time, I wouldn't run. The gunshot shattered the mountain silence like glass breaking in a cathedral. I hit the ground before I'd consciously decided to move, some animal instinct taking over, dragging me behind the cabin's stone foundation while my mind caught up to what my body already knew. Someone was shooting at us. Emma! Dominic's voice, sharp with command. Stay down! I was already down. Pressed flat against cold earth that smelled like pine needles and old snow, my heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my teeth. The gun he'd given me, loaded, safety off, ready to kill, felt foreign in my hands, like holding someone else's life. Another shot. Closer this time. Wood splintered above my head. Lila! I screamed toward the cabin. Get away from the windows! No response. Just the sound of my own breathing, too loud, too fast, drowning out everything else. Then Dominic was beside me, moving low and fast, his own weapon drawn. How many? I can't. Focus. His hand on my shoulder, grounding me. How many shots? I forced myself to think past the panic. 3, maybe 4, from the tree line, east side. Good! He was already scanning, already calculating. That's Marcus's rhythm. 2 shots to scare, 1 to aim, 1 to correct. He's alone. How do you... Because if Victor sent professionals, we'd already be dead. He checked his magazine, chambered around. Marcus is making this personal, sloppy. That gives us an advantage. What advantage? He has us pinned. He thinks he does. Dominic's smile was cold, predatory. But he doesn't know the terrain. Doesn't know Isabella had this place wired with security cameras and motion sensors. Doesn't know I've been watching him circle for the last 20 minutes, waiting for him to commit. You knew he was coming. I suspected. Detective Chen's call confirmed it. He pulled out his phone, showed me a split-screen feed, thermal imaging of the woods surrounding us, a single heat signature, moving through the trees with the confidence of someone who thought he was the hunter. He's 200 yards out, approaching from the northeast. There's a ravine between us and him. He'll have to cross it to get a clean shot. And when he does... Dominic looked at me then. Really looked. When he does, you have a choice to make. What choice? Whether you want me to handle this, or whether you want to face him yourself. His voice was gentle, but his eyes were hard. There's no wrong answer, Emma. But you need to decide now. Because once he crosses that ravine, this ends. One way or another. I thought about 3 years of fear. 3 years of checking locks and jumping at shadows and believing that if I could just stay small enough, quiet enough, invisible enough, Marcus would forget about me. Move on. Find someone else to destroy. But he hadn't. And he wouldn't. Because men like Marcus didn't see women as people. They saw us as possessions, as things they owned, could discard, could reclaim whenever they decided the rules had changed. And I was done living by his rules. I want to face him, I said. My voice didn't shake, didn't waver. I want him to see me. Not the woman he broke, not the woman running, the woman who survived him. Something shifted in Dominic's expression. Pride, maybe, or recognition. Then here's what we do. 10 minutes later, I was standing in the clearing between the cabin and the tree line, completely exposed, holding Dominic's phone like a beacon. Behind me, the cabin windows glowed warm and inviting. In front of me, the woods stood dark and watchful. I looked like bait, felt like bait, was bait. "He's moving," Dominic's voice in my ear, transmitted through the earpiece he'd given me. 50 yards, 40. He sees you. My hands wanted to shake. I forced them still. "Emma!" Marcus's voice, calling from the darkness, slurred, drunk or high or just unraveling. "Emma, baby, I just want to talk." I didn't respond. Dominic had been clear. Let him come to you. Let him think he's winning right up until he loses. "I know you're scared. I know that man, Corelli. He's got you twisted up, making you think you're better than me. But you're not, baby. You're mine. You've always been mine." Footsteps. Closer now. I could see his shape materializing from the shadows. Same build, same walk, same Marcus who'd smiled at my aunt's funeral and promised he'd never let me go. He'd kept that promise. For 2 years. For 3. For however long it took to find me again. "You look good," he said, stepping into the clearing. The gun in his hand looked too big, too real, different, stronger, maybe. That what he does to you? Makes you feel strong. He doesn't make me feel anything. My voice carried across the space between us. Steady, clear. I made myself strong. By surviving you. Marcus laughed. It sounded wrong, brittle, breaking. Surviving? That's a good word for it. That what you tell yourself? That you survived? He took another step. But you didn't really, did you? You just found a better hiding spot. A richer man to protect you. Same scared little girl I had to teach how to behave. Teach. The word tasted like ash. Is that what you call it? When you broke my ribs? When you put cigarettes out on my skin? When you told me every day that I was worthless, stupid? Lucky you even looked at me. I was helping you see the truth. He was close enough now that I could see his face. Gaunt, hollow-eyed, nothing like the man I'd thought I loved. You needed me. Still need me. Look at you, running to another man the second I'm gone. Can't even survive alone. You're right. The admission seemed to surprise him. I can't survive alone. None of us can. But there's a difference between needing someone and being destroyed by them. Between love that lifts you and love that buries you. I took a breath. What you did to me wasn't love, Marcus. It was ownership, and I'm not yours anymore. Yes, you are. He raised the gun. You'll always be mine, even if I have to kill you to prove it. Then prove it. I didn't move, didn't flinch. Pull the trigger. Show me that the only way you can keep me is by destroying me. Show me what I already know, that you're not a man. You're just a child having a tantrum because someone took away his favorite toy. His hand shook. The gun wavered. 30 seconds. Dominic's voice in my ear. Calm, steady. You're doing perfectly. Keep him talking. You want to know the truth, Marcus? I kept going, kept pushing. The truth is, I'm grateful to you. Grateful you showed me exactly what I didn't want to become. Someone who makes themselves feel powerful by making others feel small. Someone who calls destruction love and expects applause for not being worse. I smiled. It felt like freedom. You made me strong by showing me what weakness looks like. And I'll thank you for that with my last breath, whether it's tonight or 50 years from now. Shut up. His voice cracked. Just shut up. You don't get to, you can't. I can. I am. Because you don't own me anymore, Marcus. You don't own my fear or my silence or any part of who I've become. I took a step toward him. Then another. And the worst part, the part that'll keep you up at night, is knowing that I'm going to be happy. That I'm going to love someone who doesn't hurt me. That I'm going to live the life you told me I didn't deserve. And there's nothing you can do to stop it. I can kill you. He was screaming now. I can end this right now. Then do it. I was 5 feet away, close enough to see the tears on his face. But know that even in death, I'll be freer than you'll ever be. The gun came up, pointed at my chest, His finger on the trigger, time slowed, crystallized. I saw everything at once, the moon breaking through clouds, the trees standing witness, Dominic moving from the shadows with lethal precision. But Marcus never pulled the trigger. The gun fell from his hands. He collapsed to his knees, sobbing. I can't do it. I know. I looked down at him. This man who'd broken me, who'd haunted my nightmares, who'd seemed so powerful when I was powerless. He looked small now, pathetic, human in the worst way. I know you can't. Because destroying me was never about me. It was about you. About feeling powerful when you felt powerless. About making someone hurt worse than you hurt. And I forgive you for that. You what? I forgive you. Not because you deserve it. Not because what you did was okay. But because carrying your poison inside me, hating you, fearing you, letting you take up space in my head, that was killing me more surely than you ever could. I stepped back. So I forgive you, and I let you go. And I never want to see you again. Dominic was there then, weapon trained on Marcus. 2 other men emerged from the woods, Jimmy and Marco, flanking, professional, efficient, ready to end this if I gave the word. But I didn't want Marcus dead. Didn't need that particular closure. I wanted him arrested, imprisoned, facing consequences for every restraining order he'd violated, every threat he'd made, every law he'd broken. I wanted him to live knowing he'd lost. Call Detective Chen, I told Dominic. Tell her we have Marcus. Tell her. I looked at the broken man kneeling in the dirt. Tell her he's ready to confess, to everything, including who paid his bail and helped him escape. Marcus's head shot up. I can't. Victor will kill me if I... Victor's going to kill you anyway. Dominic's voice was flat, final. The moment you became more trouble than you're worth. But if you cooperate, if you give Chen everything she needs to take him down, you might live long enough to serve your sentence. And if I don't, Dominic's smile was cold, then we have this conversation in a ravine where no one will ever find your body. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. Marcus understood. I could see the calculation in his eyes, the same calculation that had always been there, weighing his options, choosing the path that hurt him least. Okay, he whispered. Okay, I'll talk. I'll tell her everything. Good choice. Dominic made a call. Within minutes, I could hear sirens in the distance. Chen must have been close, must have been tracking Marcus's phone. I walked back to the cabin on shaking legs. Lila met me at the door, eyes wide. You okay? She asked. I think so. I pulled her into a hug. Are you? I've been hiding in the bathroom for 20 minutes. So, not great. She laughed, but it sounded fragile. You were amazing out there, like some kind of warrior or something. I was terrified. Yeah, but you did it anyway. That's what makes it brave. I thought about that while we waited for the police. About bravery and terror and the thin line between them. About how being strong didn't mean not being scared. It meant being scared and standing anyway. Dominic found me on the cabin's back porch, staring up at stars I never saw in the city. Detective Chen took Marcus into custody, he said, settling beside me. He's talking, giving her names, locations, everything he knows about Victor's operation. Will it be enough? Combined with what I've gathered, yes, Victor's empire is going to crumble. Maybe not tonight, maybe not next week, but soon. He took my hand. You did that, Emma. You broke Marcus. Made him see he'd lost. And in breaking him, you gave us the final piece we needed. I didn't break him. I looked at our joined hands. I just stopped letting him break me. That's the same thing. Maybe it was. Maybe the act of surviving was itself a form of rebellion. Maybe refusing to disappear was the most radical thing I could do. We sat there in the darkness, listening to police radios crackle and fade, watching stars wheel overhead. What happens now? I asked finally. Now Marcus goes to prison. Victor's operations get dismantled. The women he trafficked get rescued, get help, get a chance to rebuild. Dominic paused. And you get to decide what comes next. What do you mean? I mean you're free, Emma. Marcus can't hurt you. Victor's losing his power. You could leave Chicago, start over somewhere else, somewhere without... He gestured vaguely. Without all this darkness. Is that what you want? For me to leave? What I want. He stopped, started again. What I want is for you to be happy. To live without fear. To choose your own path without anyone, including me, making decisions for you. I thought about that. About freedom. About what it meant to choose instead of just survive. I spent 3 years making myself invisible, I said slowly. Thinking if I could just disappear enough, I'd be safe. But I wasn't safe. I was just absent. From my own life. From possibility. From anything that might hurt but might also heal. And now I want to be visible. Want to take up space. Want to... I turned to face him. Want to see if what we have here, in all this chaos, can exist in the quiet, in the ordinary, in the after. His hand came up, cupped my face. You're sure? I'm terrified. But yes, I'm sure. He kissed me then. Soft. Sweet. Like a promise instead of a taking. When we broke apart, dawn was breaking over the mountains. There's something you need to know, Dominic said. Something I should have told you sooner. What? I love you. He said it simply, certainly. Not because you needed saving, not because you survived Marcus or faced down Victor or any of it, but because when I walked into your cafe and watched you make coffee like it was the only thing holding the world together, I saw someone who understood that survival is its own kind of grace. And I wanted to know you. All of you. The scared parts and the strong parts and everything between. My breath caught. You love me. Yes. Even though I'm a mess. Even though I come with Marcus and trauma and 3 years of bad decisions, I love you because of those things, not despite them. His thumb traced my cheekbone. Because you took all that pain and made it into strength, made it into empathy, made it into the kind of courage that walks toward danger instead of away. And that's something worth loving. I started crying. Not sad tears, not scared ones, just overwhelmed by the enormity of being seen, being chosen, being loved not for who I pretended to be but for who I actually was. I love you too, I whispered. Even though I'm still figuring out what that means, even though I don't know how to do this without second-guessing everything, even though, he agreed. We'll figure it out together. 6 months later, I stood in front of a building on Halsted Street. Not my aunt's cafe. That was ash and memory now. Insurance money and permits Victor had controlled. A new building. New space. Same dream. The sign above the door read, Grace Notes Coffee. Named for my aunt. Named for the thing I'd been searching for. That small moment of beauty in the chaos. Lila helped me paint the walls. Bright colors this time, not the faded neutrals I'd inherited. Marco installed the security system, better than before, connected to Dominic's network. Jimmy taste-tested every blend until we found the perfect roast. And Dominic stood beside me on opening day, watching the line form outside, watching people come for coffee and leave with something more. Community, connection, the sense that they'd been seen. You did it, he said quietly. We did it, I corrected. All of us. Victor Rinaldi was in federal custody, awaiting trial on trafficking charges. Marcus was serving 8 years with no possibility of parole. Detective Chen had been promoted. The women Victor had trafficked were getting help, some through programs Lila now volunteered with, using her story to help others. And me? I was learning to be happy. Learning that happiness wasn't a constant state but a choice you made every day. Some days were harder than others. Some nights I still woke up checking locks that didn't need checking. Some moments I still flinched at raised voices. But mostly I was present, in my life, in my body, in this moment. Thank you, I told Dominic, watching the sunrise paint Chicago gold. For what? For seeing me when I couldn't see myself, for standing beside me instead of in front of me, I took his hand, for keeping your promise. Which one? All of them. He kissed my temple. I'm not done promising. Good, I smiled. Neither am I. Inside the cafe, Lila was making someone's morning coffee, chatting easily, her purple hair bright against the new paint. Through the window, I could see people, our people, finding grace in small moments. I'd spent 3 years invisible, 3 years believing that survival meant disappearing. But I'd been wrong. Survival meant standing, meant being seen, meant choosing to take up space in your own life, again and again, even when it scared you, especially when it scared you. Ready? Dominic asked, gesturing toward the door. Yes, I said, and I meant it. Not just ready for the cafe, for the customers, for this new beginning, ready for whatever came next, ready to live instead of just survive, ready to be free. If you made it to the end of this story, let us know in the comments which city you're watching from, and click the yellow bell to subscribe to the channel and support us. Keep the adventure going by clicking on the suggested video on your screen.